right, all. This is homework 13. Probably going to be the shortest homework we have in the semester. It's called Intro to Graphing. It's not even graphing, really. We'll do a little bit of graphing, but mostly just intro to kind of the vocab behind it. So this is something you've definitely done before. You have to have a high school diploma or the equivalent to come to Santa Fe. You've definitely done this before. It just may have been a while. So if this homework's nice and easy for you, good. Nice and quick, no problem. If it, if you take a little while to remember things, that's no problem. Just, make sure you do go back to it. It's real important. So graphing, this is kind of where we turn a corner in the class. We're going to start talking about graphing here, and other than maybe 1 or 2 homeworks coming up, the rest of this class is going to be graphing. So this is very important. Make sure you grasp what I'm saying here. If you don't, slow it down, send me questions, and make sure that you're getting it. What does graphing mean? Just generically speaking, I'll just give you a couple visual examples. You don't even need to write these down, you just listen. Graphing is taking an equation and making a line out of it, right? So 2x plus 7, the graph would look like that. You can have stuff that's real crazy, y equals 3x squared minus 4x minus 10. A lot of times when we do graphing and we do equations, they're always multivariate, meaning there's 2 variables, x and y, and usually the y will be by itself. We'll get more into that later, but just you'll notice that for the day. And this one could look something like this, make this kind of U shape. And if you go far enough in math, you can get into the crazy stuff you've never even heard of. If you go into trig, you'll get y equals sine of x, and that can make these kind of like wave patterns. So that's what graphing is in a nutshell. Graphing is taking these equations and drawing lines from them. You know what I mean? Here we have a curved U, here we have this kind of wave pattern, and here we have a straight line. And notice on all of them, they have the same kind of cross in the background. Don't worry, I will not be drawing everything by hand in this one. That's what took me a little while to get this one posted. You'll see in a minute. I had a solution to keep this from being super, super ugly. So just a couple things before we get going. Notice that these are all lines. Now think about what is a line made up of. It's made up of points. There'd be a point here, right? And a point here, and here, and here, and everywhere, right? This line is made up of points, and notice the line goes on forever. Keep that kind of thing in mind, right? Infinite points on this line, all right? Infinite points on this line. Same over here. We have a point here, and a point here, and a point here, and there, and there. And again, this goes on forever. That's what those arrows indicate. So again, infinite points. So you're never going to be able to draw all the points in a graph, and that's not the idea. And again, don't worry about what sine is. I was just showing you a concept of something you may not have seen before. But the point is, right? The point is that there's points all over the line. Infinite points. That's the infinity sign, right? Infinite points. There's a lot of, this is where we're going to start talking concept more necessary than math. Like, there'll still be some math to do in the homework, but a lot of this is just conceptual. So understand all of these lines are made up of infinite points, and this is the really important part. You may want to come back to this and just reiterate this to yourself later. I'm just going to go ahead and write it out. In a classroom, I'd make y'all think about this a little bit, but because we're online, I'm just going to give it to you, straight up. Points on a line, right? Which is what all those things were. And we didn't talk about where they came from or how you know where they are, or anything like that yet. I'm just saying the lines are made up, oops, excuse that little dot there. The lines are made up of points. And there are infinite points on any of the lines. It doesn't matter what it looks like. So these points that are on a line are solutions to the equation. That's the whole thing with graphing. Think about what I just said because, oops, I spelled that wrong. Equation. That's the whole thing with graphing. What these points are the solutions to this equation. So this is the idea, is that instead of sitting here going, well, what happens if I put in a 0? And what happens if I put in a 1? And what happens if I put in a 2? What we've done is said, these are all the possible solutions you could ever get. And that's the whole point of graphing, y'all. We'll get into this again later. I just wanted to kind of go over the general idea. What you're seeing on a graph is a visual display of every solution to this equation. What would happen if you put in 0 for x? What y would you get? That's going to be somewhere on here. What happens if I put in 100 for x? What y would I get? That's going to be somewhere on here, okay? So just understand, points on a line are solutions to the equation, and it works both ways. If you have a solution to an equation, right? So just take an equation and you have a solution to it, it will be a point on the line. I mean, these are saying the same thing, but you should understand it both ways. And that'll be the last of the wording I'll write out here, because I know you guys, my handwriting's not great. Some of y'all have complained about making it hard to read. I'm doing my best, trying to squeeze it in here. So points on a line are solutions to the equation, and the solution to an equation is a point on the line. So if I asked you to come up with a point, it'd be the same thing as me asking you to come up with a solution to the equation. So just keep that stuff in mind, okay? There's kind of the overview to graphing. What is it that we're doing today exactly? Well, and again, hopefully this will show up nice, and look at that, beautiful. What we're doing today is just going to talk about kind of the vocab behind it. So you understand what graphing is in general. It's taking an equation and making a line out of it. But today we're more concerned with just, you know, the vocab and the structure behind it. So what you have here, notice this is the cross that I was graphing on previously. This one up here is called the y-axis. This one over here, I'm not going to use this graph, so we're going to write across it, is the x-axis, okay? Learn those terms and learn them well. Do not get them backwards. If you get them backwards, it's not going to be pretty. All right, notice it's broken up into 4 quarters, a lot like maps are. Gainesville's sort of like this: northwest, the northeast, the southwest, the southeast, except we break it up in our streets say north, south, east, and west, whereas the graphs don't. This would be quadrant, quarter, right? Also known as a quadrant. We'll go and write the word out. Quadrants. This is quadrant 1. This is quadrant 2. This is quadrant 3. And this is quadrant 4. All right. They are in that order, and that is just the way they've been named, kind of like a C. Okay. So what we'll do is sometimes say, here's a point on the graph, and we'll talk about those in just a second. Which quadrant is it in? You got to have these memorized. You can't, the order cannot be changed. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. Okay. X-axis, y-axis. I guess we will use this one actually over here. So remember we said the idea here is that we're graphing lines, which we start out by graphing points. Okay. Points always have an X and then a Y value. Okay. They're also called coordinates. Coordinates, points, same thing. All right. So let's say I had the point 3, 2. All right. Again, that's always going to be X, Y. So what this point is saying when it says 3, 2 is that this point lives where X is 3 and Y is 2. So look at the graph, and hopefully you can see those numbers. I'm not sure how sharp the resolution is. I may have to make these graphs a little bigger next time, but hopefully you can see the numbers. And on the X, notice they go positive to the right out to infinity. On the left, they go negative out to negative infinity. Up on the Y is the positive infinity. Down on the Y is the negative infinity, right? 0 in the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4, blah, blah, blah on the X. -1, -2, -3, so 4 on the X. Up is positive on the Y. Down is negative on the Y. Again, you've probably done this before. So what we're looking for is where these two meet up. So 3 on the X, 1, 2, 3, and then also 2 on the Y, which is right here. +2 is up. So 3 on the X, 2 on the Y, that point should be right there on the graph. Now here's the thing, it's not a point on 3 and then a point on 2 and then a point where they meet. Sometimes people do that. They'll have 3 points every time they're drawing one. It's not a point on 3 and it's not a point on 2. It's the line of X equals 3, which is here, and the line of Y equals 2, which is here. And where do they meet? Right there. You definitely will want to have some graph paper for this, just to help yourself on the test. When we get to the graphic stuff. I mean, you'll be able to graph online. You'll see how it goes in the homework. It's actually pretty clean, but just for yourself and your notes. Let's say we had the point -2, 4. Same thing. It's saying -2 for the X, 4 for the Y. So -1, 2 on the X, and then we go 1, 2, 3, 4 on the Y. That one would be right there. Okay, is this making some sense? Hopefully. The other way the points can be shown to you is on a table. You've already seen these because we did these several homeworks ago, right? Instead of saying 3, 2, I might just say 0, 7 or 0, 7. 0 on the X, 7 on the Y. 0, remember, is in the middle. So we're not going to the right on the X into the positives. We're not going to the left on the X into the negatives. We're just going to stay at 0. And then we want to be a 7 on the Y, which is 7 up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you go right, you're not at 0 anymore on the X. If you go left, you're not at 0 anymore on the X. You have to stay right here at 0 and then up 7, and that one would be right there. Make these points just a little bit bigger. Okay, what about something like -1, -8? Well, again, start back at the center, -1 on the x. Remember, always start with the x. And again, memorize what directions things are going. It makes it much easier. Negatives are to the left, so -1 on the x, and then negatives on the y are down. So -1, and then down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. -1, 8. Okay? The numbers are a little bit off here. -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think it's just because they had to squeeze them in and make room. So just count the little blocks. And again, doing this on your own graph paper will help. So that's the idea here, y'all, is that you're going to be graphing a lot of points in the homework. Again, it'll probably be pretty straightforward for you, but just make sure that it is. You know, go through. It's worth reviewing. It's worth looking at and double checking that everything's clear and everything's cool. All right. So take a minute and then we will practice this a bit. Put up another graph. Hopefully these are, well, definitely these are going to be cleaner than it would look when I'm drawing them, but I'm not quite sure if they're large enough. I'll have to make them maybe a little bit bigger next time. All right, so let's say that you were asked to, and this is something you might do on the test. Let's say we gave you a table here, and we said to find the following points. And I'll move my hand in just a second. We're going to use the graph on the right, because I'm just going to write right over this one here. So let's say we were given this table here, and then, you know, let's go ahead and also ask what quadrant they're in. They won't usually write it on a table like that. I'm just kind of squeezing it in there. So here's a bunch of points: 3, 4, 0, 8, -2, 1, 3, 0, -4, -1, and 2, -3. We're going to graph all these over here, and then we're going to answer what quadrant they're in. So take a minute, try it yourself, see how you go. If you get this, then, I mean, that's pretty much all there is to it. There's nothing crazy here, okay? So let's see, 3, 4, which again, remember, could be written in that, you know, in the coordinate manner rather than on a table. 3, 4, that's 3 on the x, 1, 2, 3, and then 4 on the y, 1, 2, 3, 4, right there. That's in quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. That's in quadrant 1. Often done with Roman numerals, guys, so you might just want to get used to that. 0, 8, so 0 on the x, and then 8 on the y, positive 8 on the y, so that's up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right there. Now, as far as a quadrant goes, it's not in a quadrant. You could say it's on the y-axis, but that is not really a quadrant, right? It's not really an answer exactly. It's like saying, where, you know, what state are you from? And you saying America. Well, that is where you're from, but it's not really an answer to the question of what state you're from. So if it asks you what quadrant they're in, it is not in a quadrant. Notice it's right on the line. Just like if you're at the, you know, standing on Main Street in Gainesville, you're not in the north or the south, you're sort of on the dividing line there, okay? So 0, 8 would be up there, and then -2, 1. That's -2 on the x, -1, -2, and then +1 on the y. So that one would be right there, and that's in quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4, quadrant 2. 3, 0. That's going to be 3 on the x, 1, 2, 3, and then 0 on the y, meaning we're not going to go up, we're not going to go down, so it's going to be right there. Again, that is on the x-axis, so not in a quadrant. We can say the x-axis if you ask for the location of it, but it's not in a quadrant, be careful. -4, -1, so that's going to be -4 on the x, -1, -2, -3, -4, and then -1 on the y, which would be right there. That's in quadrant 1, 2, 3. And then 2, -3, that's going to be 2 on the x, and then -1, -2, -3 down. It's going to be in quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So just a little bit of practice graphing points. That's something you'll have to do in the homework. Give me some feedback on this one, guys, because this is the first time I've used these pre-printed graphs. There is a limit to how big I can make it simply because of the boundaries of the paper. It won't let me go too much further to the left or the right. I could probably make them a little bigger, but let me know if these are visible, if they're not visible at all. You know, if you're watching on your phone, it's probably not going to be visible. Try blowing it up onto a computer or something like that. Okay, so let's wrap this up. There's only a couple other things to talk about here. What's the point? Well, I keep saying this almost like I'm making a joke, but I'm not. What's the point of points? Why are we doing this? Well, because again, the idea is to graph equations. So what we're going to do is, remember, graphing is to take an equation, a whole equation, not just points. Graph an equation. I think I missed the U there. Graph equation by plotting points. So one way to graph, and there are three major ways to graph. We're only going to talk about one today. Is graph an equation. My English is terrible. Graph equations by plotting points. There we go. Graph equations by plotting points. So what they're going to do is give you an equation. And let's say over here on the left side, we'll have something not too crazy. Y equals 2x minus 3. There's our equation. Don't worry about where it came from or y equals mx plus b or any of that stuff. We're not doing that yet. Okay, just something I came up with. And what they're going to ask you for is to fill in a table. The table might be filled out for you. Oops, man, I am just making all kinds of errors today. The table might be filled out for you, or it might be blank. It just depends. Something like that maybe. And then they'll ask you to fill in the y's, okay? So what you're doing here basically is just that function stuff we talked about before, and that is completely off the screen. Sorry, guys. 0, 1, 2, 3. So this is what the graph would give you, or the equation would give you. Here's the equation. Here's the graph. They've already filled in the x's. They just want you to fill in the y's and then graph the points. So basically what they're doing is, like I said, like the function last time, they're telling you x is 0, plug it in and see what you get. X is 1, plug it in and see what you get. X is 2, plug it in and see what you get. That's all, okay? So if it asks you to graph by plotting points, it's not a big deal. You just have to plug in the x's they give you and see what you get. So if we put in 0, we'd have, and I want to save some room over here, so I got to, we'll probably just do this verbally. If I plug in 0, 2 times 0 is 0, and 0 minus 3 is -3, right? If you plug in 0 to that, you should get -3 as the value on the y. What if I plugged in a 1? 2 times 1 is 2. 2 minus 3 is -1. And then what if I plugged in a 2? And we can write this one out if you want. Y equals 2 times 2 minus 3. So y equals 4 minus 3. So y equals 1. So that's what I've been doing all the other times. I just, plugged a 0 in, did it in my head, plugged a 1 in, did it in my head. If we plug in a 2, that's what it would look like. So when I plugged in 2, I got 1. And all you got to do now is graph these points. Now, there's a little bit of an annoyance in the homework, and I'll mention it in just a second. So for now, we'll just go with this. This is why I'm doing this with you, because the homework has, it's a little bit weird. So 0, -3, 1, -1, 2, 1. Let's see what we get. 0 on the x, -3 on the y would be right there. -1, -2, -3. 1, -1 would be here. 1, -1 would be right there. 2, 1, 2 on the x, 1 on the y, and it would be right there. And in the homework, once you've laid down a point or two, it'll kind of connect the line for you. And there you go. There was one point, there was another point, and there was our third point. We just connected the dots, and there's our graph. Now, notice I kind of knew it would be a straight line, right? Because we didn't do any other dots. What if I did a dot, it ended up over here, or a dot and it ended up over there? It wouldn't be a straight line. How did you know it was a straight line? Just because those three were doesn't mean they all will be. That's sort of the problem here, is the homework assumes you know the shape of the graph before you graph it. I will tell you, and we're going to do one more, the ones in the homework look like the one I'm about to do next. So if you get stuck in the homework, and this will kind of tell me who's watching the videos and who's not, based upon who emails me about this or not. Watch the video and then go back to do the homework, because the one in the homework toward the end is exactly like what I'm about to do here. It's what we just did here, but they'll give you sometimes a little bit bumped up equation. Like let's say y equals 2x squared minus x plus 4, okay? And they want you to graph that. I'm telling you right now, if it has a squared, it's going to make this U shape. And you're going to have to select it in the graph menu. Unfortunately, I can't really show you on here. What you're going to do is fill in the table. We're going to do it together here in a minute. You're going to fill in the table, and then you have to select the shape of the graph, and the computer will fill in the shape for you. I'm just telling you right now, any equation that starts off with a square is going to make this little U shape over here, okay? So that's the only thing you need to know for the homework. It's a little bit annoying. I've talked to Pearson about it. There's really nothing they can do to fix it, because it's programmed that way for everybody, blah, blah, blah. All right. Again, I'll clear this up as we go. So y equals 2x squared minus x plus 4. This is our equation. And let's say this time they give us a table, but there's just nothing in it. Last time, the 0 was given to you, the 1 was given to you, the 2 was given to you. We had to come up with these values. What if they left the table blank entirely? And in the homework, they don't, but it's possible, you know, as we go down the road, you'll get one that is blank. Well, here's the thing. Go back to the very first thing I did today, right? When we looked at the graphs, go back to the very first thing I did, if I can find it, there it is. Notice all the graphs I drew went on to infinity in both directions. Infinite, infinite, doesn't end, doesn't end, doesn't end, doesn't end. Most graphs don't. Unless you're doing very special kind of graphs, the graphs do not end, they're infinite. So the nice thing is you can usually, and then in this class, it's always true, you can just pick any x you want. Think about what we just did over here. Here they gave us the 0, we had to plug it in. Here they gave us the 1, we had to plug it in. Here they gave us the 2, we had to plug it in. Here they're not giving us anything, so a lot of times students get these and then they kind of just freeze. Oh, I didn't know what to pick. Well, don't pick 37, pick something easy. How about 0, -1, -2, 1, 2, something like that, okay? I mean, you could pick whatever you want, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't matter. I like to have a little bit of balance. So you can pick any x you want. Then once you've picked your x's, you just do the same thing we did. We plug them into the equation and get our solutions. So we're gonna have to do this on another sheet of paper and then come back and graph it, obviously. So we'll kind of move this up here. So the equation we were just working on was y equals 2x squared minus x plus 4, okay? And again, I told you, this is just something I'm gonna tell you for the homework. Any problem that starts off with an x squared always is gonna make what they call a parabola. So just so you know, that's kind of what the shape's gonna be. The x's and the y's were not given to us. They will be in the homework for the most part, but I'm just prepping you for the future when they're not. So where did I come up with these x's then? Well, I just chose them. Again, if the graph is, unless you're talking a kind of advanced math, graphs are very continuous. They're always one long line. So you can pick any x you want. So we're just gonna say that I picked the x's. You can pick any x you want if they're not given to you. I just picked them, 0, 1, and 2, -1 and -2. Now what I need to do is simply just find the y values that go with these, and then we'll go back and graph them, okay? So start off with -2. Remember, what you're doing here is saying y equals 2 times -2 squared minus -2 plus 4. Make sure you use parentheses when you plug in or this will not work correctly. Make sure you know your order of operations or this will not work correctly. Exponents first. -2 squared is 4. 2 times 4 becomes 8 plus 2, right? Because negative and negative is +2. Plus 4, 8 and 2 is 10 and 4, that's 14. So now we have one of our points. In this case, we need to go and get all 5, but you know, it just depends on how many they ask for. Now we'll do it with -1. Some of them we might be able to do in our head. I wouldn't encourage you to do them in your head on the test, obviously. Exponents first, so -1 squared, that's 1. And then everything else just comes down. 2 times 1 is 2. Negative and negative is +1 plus 4. 2 plus 1 is 3, plus 4, that's 7, okay? Now 0, and that's all we're doing here. I just wanted to do kind of a more complicated one with you because this is the kind toward the end of the homework. 0 squared is 0, 0 times 2 is 0, that whole thing just becomes 0, minus 0 plus 4. 0 minus 0 plus 4 is 4. So y equals 4. And then we just have to finish it off and we'll kind of just squeeze these in wherever. So we got y equals, now we're gonna do 1. 2 times 1 squared minus 1 plus 4, okay? 1 squared is 1 times 2 minus 1 plus 4, that's 2 minus 1 plus 4, that's gonna be 5. 2 minus 1 is -1. Excuse me, 2 minus 1 is 1 plus 4, that's 5. And then the last one, we'll put in 2. And again, if you can do these in your head and get them correct, that's fine, you know. 2 squared is 4 times 2 minus 2 plus 4, That's going to be 8 minus 2 plus 4. That's going to be 10. So now we've filled out our table. Take a minute. I'll leave that up there for just a second so you can kind of look it over. Okay. We plugged in -2, got 8 plus 2, which is 10, plus 4, which was 14. We plugged in -1. We got 2 plus 1 plus 4, which was 7. We plugged in 0, and we got 4. We plugged in 1, and we got 5. We plugged in 2, and we got 10. And again, where did I get these numbers from? In this case, they weren't given, so I just picked them. You can pick any X's you want for the most part, especially in this class. Again, be easy on yourself. Don't pick things like 39, you know? So let's bring back our graph. Let's fill in our table with the points we just had. I'll go ahead and do that for you. So that's -2 and 14. That's -1 and 7. That's 0 and 4. That's 1 and 5. And that's 2 and 10. All right. And we're going to go ahead and graph these. So we'll start off the bottom, 2 and 10. That's going to be 2 on the X. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on the Y. Again, 2 on the X. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on the Y. 1, 5. That's going to be 1 on the X, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the Y. 0, 4. That's 0 on the X, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can already see this is making a shape that's not a straight line. That's why I said for the computer's just poorly designed in these questions. You have to know what the shape is going to be. So like I said, if it starts with an X squared, it will be this kind of U shape. -1, 7, -1 on the X, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now this last one is -2, 14, and my graph doesn't go to 14. So it's not really going to happen in the homework, but it certainly can happen in real life when you're doing this stuff. What you probably want to do is extend the graph. We already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So this one would be -2 and 14 and be way up here. And if you connect the dots, what you get is this sort of parabola shape, like I said we would. So it just depends. You can get any kind of complicated shape you want. The homework sticks to pretty much just straight lines and curves. And again, you'll know if there's a U or a parabola because it'll have an X squared. Don't panic about parabolas. We're not getting into all that. They're just using it as an example to show you that not all lines are straight. Okay? So that's the homework tonight, guys. Plotting points, figuring out what the points are in the problem. If they give you an X, plugging it in and get the Y and stuff like that. And then also don't forget your vocab, quadrants, knowing which one is 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And with that, guys, I will see you in the next one.